When Van Jones left the Obama administration, he wanted to do something that would open the doors of opportunity for poor, mostly African American people. One of his target audiences was girls living in Oakland, California. Poor girls, mostly African American. You could look at that as 3 strikes in our current world. But Oakland is only 30 minutes by BART from Silicon Valley. 30 minutes from rich and extraordinary opportunities, if only they could get there. And I don't mean that they had the money for the BART. I mean, if only they had the skills, confidence, and connections to make that trip to Silicon Valley part of their daily lives. Van Jones wanted these poor, young, mostly African-American girls to work in the Valley, home of Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, and so many other computer-related jobs. Van Jones created something called Yes, We Code. It took me a second to hear it, like, yes, we could, yes, I know that one. No, Yes, We Code for those girls, giving them the training they needed to get a job, a great job. The project builds bridges between Oakland and Silicon Valley. As he started his work and the other projects that he was developing, he trusted that those relationships can be established, will be established. All of that is about building the world we dream about. A world where revolutionary love is the operative energy. Earlier in the spring, I had the pleasure of going to the Revolutionary Love Conference in New York City. Speakers such as Parker Palmer, Reverend Dr. William Barber II, and Ruby Sales were there, and you see many of them on the cover of your order of service. Others that you maybe haven't heard of, but that I predict you will hear inspiring and important messages from in the future include Tracy Blackman, Otis Moss III, and Valerie Kaur. The theme of this conference every year, it's held every year in April in New York City. The theme of the conference was developing the tools and muscles to build the world we dream of for ourselves and our kids and unto future generations. What is revolutionary love? Well, David alluded to some of it. The definition that I'm using is working together to change culture and policy in love. Love for others, love for our opponents, and love for ourselves. The goal is to create conditions for lasting political, social, and moral transformation. Let me break this down. First, love. Is it possible to love others in a way that you don't see a stranger? Where that other parent's child's success is just as important to you as your own? Where you mourn the loss of another child as if he or she was a family member? This is a hard ask, but we can surely get a lot closer to that goal than we have been so far. If every young person was your child, then how would you treat them? It could truly be said that no child is just somebody else's child in beloved community. Don't we see it here at River Road? If a child is racing towards the steps or the door making a fast break, in this community, we would stop them. If danger was coming towards them, we would step in the way. And yet, we don't, as a nation, do that all of the time, or even most of the time, particularly with those entering our country through immigration. Can't we care about others, as our first principle says, because they are simply worthy of our love and respect? We don't need to care about people because they are the same as us. Rather, we could care just because they are people. Is it possible to develop an active spiritual practice of seeing one another as siblings, parents, and children? When I lived in India a long time ago, kids almost always greeted me as auntie, and old people called me daughter. I loved it. It would be work, but wouldn't we take better care of one another? Wouldn't it be easier to be in deep relationship with one another if we actually thought of people as sister, brother, uncle, child? People need to be seen, and mostly we don't invisibilize our siblings, our loved ones, and those who make our world rich and full with their presence. Let us recreate, or perhaps create for the first time, a circle of love and hold one another in it. Love of this caliber isn't easy. It isn't easy. Could we think of it as labor? Yes, like birth pains, labor. Hard work that yields so much, and that without we'd become extinct. If no one did the work of birthing, there would be no one here in short order. What about laboring, that type of work, to build the world we want? Our moment in the world often feels bleak and dark, but can we take the labor metaphor even further in this moment in time in our nation and think of the darkness that so many of us feel as the darkness of the womb, not the darkness of death? Can we hope so? But we can hope so, but only by laboring mightily will we get this loving world to be born. We need a fierce love, strong and enduring love, calling us to be our best selves. The love I'm talking about is a love for others, including our enemies. During the Revolutionary Love Conference, I heard from speakers from every community this nation loves to disparage. Muslims, Sikhs, LGBT people, atheists, people with multiple identities, disabled people. All of them said, fresh, new, it was their idea. It was their own idea. And they said it, but so many of them said it. You can't make me hate you in my heart. You can't make me hate you. I won't hate you. I'll work to change you, but I won't hate you. What do we want to change? Well, maybe us white folks, and certainly not all in this room fit that bill, but the white folks could work to become more comfortable or tolerant of some discomfort. I don't know if all of you were here as I did that chalice lighting, but what I said is there anyone from the Piscataway Nation here today? And there was silence, kind of as I predicted. And then we lit the chalice in memory of those folks. So I called out the tribal name of the original owners of this land on which our church, our homes, and our schools and roads rest. All of those spaces belonged a long time ago to the Piscataway tribe. They were here, and our ancestors moved them out. Maybe your ancestors came later than that. But I'm still going to own the discomfort and powerful and even critical discomfort of naming that this land wasn't owned by white people a while ago, and I want to remember that. If your white ancestors came later than that, you still benefit from the fact that this land is now owned in a way that the Native Americans who lived here never knew that land could be owned. Being someone who can acknowledge my whiteness and the privileges that it gives me, my whiteness has given me a leg up in this country. But acknowledging it helps define my humanity. At the Revolutionary Love Conference, they did a similar ingathering ritual calling out the name of the tribe that once owned the land on which the church sits. And when someone present was from that tribe, they were invited to speak. Everything stopped. They came up and they said some words about their experience. On another day, no one was present, as here today, and a moment of silence was held for what that means. I'm going to admit that the chalice lighting I did today, especially when I parse it out and explain it, is painful for some of us. But common pain can lead to common purpose. Let us develop the common purpose of bringing more love and healing into our world. My world would be different if I remembered every day that my house sits on land that was once owned by Native people, and my house and the property that this church sits on was once farmed by enslaved people. If you don't know your history, if you don't understand yourself, you cannot understand others. So let's reclaim both love and discomfort to move us forward to a beautiful and future world, the one that we dream about. One of the most important messages to the white folks at the Revolutionary Love Conference was the statement that we white folks come to the work of racial justice for our own salvation. We aren't doing it to be helpful in some sort of amorphous, possibly patronizing way. No. We need to heal we white people like me need to heal our own souls by seeing what has happened previously. I need to know that to acknowledge, to become free. For me at least, your truth may differ. I'm just pretending to be free if I can't hold on to those uncomfortable truths. It doesn't work for me to avert my gaze from the pain before me anymore. So what can we do to create the world we dream of? There are multiple levels on which to pour our love out. 3 levels, in fact, I'm going to call it. First, our family, congregation, neighborhood, our tight little world that we see every day, every week. Part of that is empowering our kids. I heard the most wonderful thing recently. We keep treating children like they are the church of tomorrow, but really, they are the church of today. Love our neighbors, deepen our connection to our beloved community here that we are building here, participate with AIM, build in our county. These are useful steps. Then comes the need for justice in our nation. I want a world where people don't hate themselves for their looks, their race, their class status, their gender identity. That ties to race relations, the school-to-prison pipeline, immigration, the fact that there is inadequate health care and it's diminishing for many, many people. Health care should be a right, and no child should go to sleep hungry in this prosperous nation. And yet, it happens. those venues where hate is the norm, not love. Let us build a world where me too is no longer needs to be said. And in a parallel and equally important truth, a world where men do not feel that they are growing up labeled as villains, where they are there with love as well. Yes, let's change it all through mobilization, with causes like Reverend Barber's Repairers of the Breach, the Poor People's Campaign. Reverend Barber is calling for a moral revival, and that sounds to me like a big step towards a more loving world. And finally, the whole world. The environmental, international development, fairness between nations. The world is warming, and poor people in poor countries will take the brunt of that. All this talk about we in America, think Bangladesh, think the countries that are virtually underwater right now. We need to change the direction of environmental degradation. We can if we make our choices around the idea of how to be loving, how to live the most loving life we can. These hard decisions would be pretty easy if we focused on love. Not easy, but pretty easy. Let us give the next generation a more just world than the one in which we live today.